Welcome to another episode of the Building Texas Show. I'm excited to be joined by Gilley Mendoza. He's here in San Antonio, Texas, and doing some interesting developments around real estate, but really it's the location of this real estate that I'm excited about because it supports community college, it supports first-generation homeownership, it supports a part of town that I think is vital to San Antonio's success. So Gilley Mendoza, thank you for joining us.
Man, Justin, thank you for having me. I'm excited about this and looking forward to getting into it.
Well, tell us about your real estate career and how you got to this point, and then we'll dive into what you're building.
Sure. So got into the business about 13 years ago. Really started by buying a couple rental properties 2 years prior to that. So I'd say about 15 years been into the business, but got into it actually because of me being in college at the time. And I remember they would bring down these successful alumni that would come in and talk about how they created wealth and what they're doing in business and et cetera. And at the time, I don't remember anybody not being in the real estate space in some capacity. So that's where I first got intrigued. And the first book that I had ever read was Rich Dad Poor Dad, and a lot of that was real estate as well, right? And so Robert Kiyosaki speaks a lot on real estate, and so I was like, man, this is something that I want to do. Graduated in '09, didn't know how to get into the business, et cetera. So I started working my way up in the corporate world. And by 2013, I got my license and I was able to do both for the first year. And that's really where I started more as a real estate agent. And so started selling real estate. I found my niche in working with real estate investors just because that's really why I got my license, was for the investing side. So started helping a lot of investors buy real estate, specifically on the land side. They would build or they would flip, whatever that may be. In 2018, I got an opportunity for a client that I was just working with that asked me if I wanted to partner with him. And he was like, you can come in at any capacity. This was my first real land development deal. And I came in, my wife and I were able to contribute a third of the all-in costs. And I would call it a home run that we hit first deal. And so never looked back on it, specifically on the land development side. And that was an area that I found a lot of interest in, and there was a lot of passion there. And so since 2018, we've been doing a lot of land development. Done a few new construction here and there, but that's the space that we want to focus on and play in really for the next 10 years or so, which has evolved. It went from buying land, flipping it, to now doing horizontal construction, bringing in roads, utilities, and then now going vertical with some of the units.
But that's an entrepreneurial journey for sure.
Absolutely.
You're continuing to build on it. So where are you doing this development? Where are you looking to focus over the next 10 years?
Yeah. So really the south side part of town. And reason for that is that's where I grew up and just know the community very well. I think that the people and it's an area that's been underserved for a long time, right? So there's a lot of opportunity down there. And if you're not from San Antonio, I'd like to say this. You look on the map, you got 410, you got 1604, two big loops around San Antonio. You go 410 south to 1604 south, all undeveloped land, and all you will see is green space. You go 410 north, which is where the airport is, up to 1604, all developed and all built out, right? So I truly believe for the next 20 years or so, there's room for growth for everybody, right? Whoever wants to get in down there, a lot of opportunities. So because I'm from the area, I'm very passionate about it. That's where we want to really be. And that's where one of the projects we have, I think the one that you saw, the 80 unit, is there, right across the street from Palo Alto. And then right around the corner, about a mile and a half down, we got another 21 unit project off of Gillette Street. And got some other things in the works. Got a handful of things, smaller infill projects downtown on both the east side and the west side of downtown, within probably about a 2 mile from the core.
Well, and downtown San Antonio is going to see so much construction over the next few years.
Oh, yeah.
And that draw of tourism that opens up more job opportunities. So the area of town that you're talking about is really an exciting one. Palo Alto College, that's a story that we share. I enjoyed going to Alamo Community Colleges. Palo Alto's a proud part of that. And then you also have Texas A&M San Antonio, which a lot of people don't realize is a major campus at this point and is drawing a lot of students to the area or up from the valley into the area, I think is what's really, we're seeing a lot of movement towards Texas A&M San Antonio.
It's a beautiful campus. I mean, just what they've done, and you look at how much acres they have. I want to say it's like 700 acres plus or minus that Vita consists of. So there's like room for development for years to come. Their master plan looks awesome, which I think South Star is leading that. But just like I mean, there too, another probably 50 years worth of work. And I know, like, depending on which report, I think A&M San Antonio is one of the fastest growing universities in Texas. Like, there's a lot more students. It's attractive. So I'm excited.
So one of the hot conversations in this topic is going to be water. And on the south side of San Antonio, I think the conversation's a lot different than it would necessarily be north of San Antonio or out in the hill country. What's your perspective as a developer on water in this kind of area?
So I followed that for the last couple of years, right? And that was more people. That was a discussion for investment opportunities, right? Because they're from what I understand, tunneling water even from like Mexico, bringing that into California. It's a thing, and water is going to be a commodity. It's going to be just like gold, is what they're predicting, forecasting. I don't know enough about it to speak to it necessarily on the like as an expert, right? But I do not see it to be an issue based on where we're at. Like what is an issue is, from what I have found, is the infrastructure to get water to some of these sites. Here we don't have that problem, right? Like in terms of water usage, to educationally speak on that, I don't have that expertise, right? But I don't see it per se as an issue. I know in like New Braunfels, northern areas of town, it is becoming an issue. But here, I do not see that as an issue.
And you're tied into the San Antonio water system, and they've done a great job of really building out that infrastructure, as you mentioned, particularly
Correct.
to the south side that you can connect into. Very different than I think the further outside that 1604 loop you get, the less infrastructure you will find.
Yeah. Yep.
So your 80 door unit is across from Palo Alto. What stage of development is that in? Where could people find more information about what that looks like and the type of development that you're building?
Sure. So right now we're almost done with the horizontal, which is basically bringing in the roads and the utilities, right? We probably got another 30 to 45 days max that they'll be ready. So we'll have finished lots deliverable, and that can be for a builder to come in, or if we wanted to go vertical on some, that's where we'll be in about 45 more days. What we're building is 80 doors total. It will consist of 19 duplexes, which brings you 38 doors between the 19 duplex lots. And then we have 42 single family lots. Those are all 4,000 square feet. We have more information. You go to villaretcommons.com, and that's the road, Villaret Road, Villaret commons.com. And there's a site plan and some info there, a few photos. And then you submit your info. I'll get back to you, or one of us will get back to you with information on the project.
And as you go through your real estate career, what does that look like from the entrepreneurial? Is it you and your family, or is there a larger team that you're putting together for your real estate company?
So, big picture wise, and I love to put this out there, right? Because you look back 10 years ago, and some people, as they saw these articles, are like, man, I remember you talking about that 10, 13 years ago. So I'm big on putting goals out there. And I'll say this is like what this looks like down the road, big picture. I envision this to be a big family building, right? Like a legacy thing. Not this project specifically, but the name. And in a perfect world, we would have developments going across all over the world, which is why I put international behind my name when I first got into real estate. And it's kind of still a joke, right? I mean, I'll have people knock that, right? But I've always envisioned a name, a brand that can build internationally. And I'm first generation, didn't know anybody when I first got into the real estate business, like anybody, family or friends. So this is kind of like me first starting, but I think my kids who are following suit, my daughter's going to college specifically for real estate development. She wants to get into business, maybe grandkids, great grandkids, etc. I would love to have a family name and a family brand that carries on forever, and well beyond the years that I'm here. And I feel like that's why I'm in this business, and that's kind of my God-given talent right now, and where I'm putting a lot of energy direction. So what that looks like down the road is a great real estate name, brand, and it's with a solid team. I know none of us are going to do this alone, so I would love for my family to be a part of it, but if they're not, I mean, I'm okay with that too. It's just something that I envision. Big picture, we do a lot for the community. We start here in San Antonio, expand throughout Texas, and then throughout the country, and then at some point internationally. But
Well, I think international's fitting just based on San Antonio and the culture and community that we are. I
Mhm.
suspect that you meet a lot of international investors that are looking at San Antonio. The growth projections for our community in the future of technology work in our community is tremendous.
Yep.
And so I applaud the ambition of putting international in your name because I think it suits who we are as San Antonio.
Yep.
Well, as we wrap up, what else is going on in the real estate world that we would want to know about? Like, what are the headwinds? And interest rates are the easy topic, but I think there's some bigger headwinds that are worth talking about when you talk about how you're developing versus maybe how some of the other developers are coming into the market. I'm looking at some big box home builders that are really coming into more sensitive development areas and getting a lot of public backlash.
Yeah.
But I think the intentional developer like yourself is probably getting good community support. Am I reading the room right in that way, or what do you
Yeah,
see?
I would say so. I mean, I think like what I've seen in our space is that you can't make everyone happy, right? So like I was getting pushback specifically on gated, right? Like you're gating because of this, whatever the stereotypical thing is for them, right? Or affordable housing that's not affordable pricing, which I didn't say necessarily it was affordable, but the value is 250 to 300,000. So we need this, we need that, right? But then you got people who are from the South Side, like myself, that always felt like we needed this kind of real estate, we needed this kind of retail, that tier, and I'm like, man, all for it. And you got a lot of those that are like, man, bring it all. We've always had to travel up north to get this, and so there's a lot of, I would say, more that are more optimistic and more excited and more in support in it than there is negative, right? But not everybody is happy about what's happening, whether it's me or anybody else that's coming in. I would say what I see over the next couple years is builders have pumped the brakes. Even national tract home builders, they haven't been aggressive in the last year. When you look at how they're doing big picture wise in comparison to the average pre-owned seller or smaller investor, they're still killing it. They're doing phenomenal. In a normal market, you have about 10% of sales that are on the new construction side. San Antonio has seen about 40% plus or minus, which is phenomenal, right? Like I think if you're a homeowner and you're like, okay, well I can go to this new builder and the new builder's paying all the closing costs and they're giving me a 3% interest rate versus a 6.5% interest rate. That is the big reason that they're winning, right? They're basically baking it into their costs. But what we're seeing is, at least what I've seen, is them slow down a little bit. So what's being forecasted is that all this inventory is being absorbed, right? Those who have inventory to come to the market in 2027, even late 2026, are going to win because builders are going to come back in aggressively, hopefully. And that's all builders from every size, smaller builder, mid-size, bigger builder, come in and want to buy up this inventory. And there's been a lot of people that just can't go and do things right now. The cost of money is very expensive. Banks are not very aggressive. So I think there's going to be some pretty good opportunity. And I don't know that from what we're reading and what we're being told is 2026 will be pretty stable, just kind of like we've seen over the last 12 months, which hasn't been a really good market. Like it's been pretty tough. I think even when you look at it from a real estate agent's perspective, the data that shows, I think NAR put out a stat like 78% of realtors didn't have more than one sale last year. Like it's pretty tough. But new construction builders overall, the last 4 years since 2022 or 3 years have done pretty well overall.
Well, and it's also a testament to people moving here. We're getting
Yep.
a lot of influx of population, and I worry about the supply and demand of the housing that we have. I think the opportunity for a shortage to come in. And so new developers building like what you're building, I think are building responsibly, and hitting the right price points that we need that are approachable. That's a great fit. Last question I had really around that developer journey is there's different stages of it. And when we're looking out and forecasting the demographic shifts, meaning the population shift into the Texas Triangle specifically, there are still corners and pockets around Texas that have the opportunity to see more industrial growth. And I think they are centered around community college systems and where the workforce is going. So how do you track the future of work as a developer? What demographic data are you looking at when you're making a site selection?
So for me, I'm going to use specifically the south side, right? Like is you've got a lot of manufacturing jobs that are coming in, like Toyota. Toyota's been there for 20 plus years. They're expanding their site. You got JCB who went in, like some of the things that we were paying attention to, when the tariffs came into place, they announced that they were going to double their site from 500,000 square feet of industrial space to 1 million, right? So they're doubling their footprint. So tracking that kind of data, you got TJ Maxx over there by Mission Del Lago. There's a whole bunch of them coming in. I look at the blue collar workforce, right? Who is fulfilling those jobs, and which is how they're picking their site selections too, right? What areas of town, et cetera. What's the demographic like? Like for me, for what we're building, trying to stay under 300,000 and below, those are the metrics that I'm looking at, right? Where are these companies coming in? Is there room for undeveloped land? Is there enough housing to support these jobs that are there? And right now on the south side, I don't see that. And so if you look at all the housing starts, a lot of them are in the south side. Go look at all the new communities, most of them are in the south side. So even like institution type developers, builders, they have that information. We like to say, like for somebody of my size, right, follow smart money, which is institutional money. Where are they going? And so I saw this a long time ago just because I know the area, right? I have intimate knowledge of it. So if I'm looking at, let's use the Valley as an example. If I'm looking at the Valley, McAllen, Texas, Edinburgh, any of that down there, right? Smart money is moving down there, which it wasn't 5 years ago. That was the lowest per capita in 2000. I think Brownsville was, and look at Brownsville exploding, right? A lot of that had to do with Elon Musk going down there. But I feel like those secondary markets still have a lot of opportunity. Lido's really blowing up in population, and I think that's because of what's happening in the south side in Vida. You have an entry point, now you have University Hospital going in, etc. But if you look at their data center, like they got one of the biggest data centers going in. Same thing with all that Castroville area. That doesn't necessarily bring a lot of jobs, but you've got a lot of capital going into those areas. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's an incredibly important conversation. And I bring it up at the end just to really emphasize that with the future of work and with everything that we talk about on Building Texas, housing is a component that we cannot forget. And approachable housing, affordable housing is a little bit of a hard target, right? But approachable housing is something that you can work in the jobs that you were listed, those manufacturing jobs that are so prevalent in our region. And then you talk about the markets like McAllen that are up and coming and doing some incredible work because of the companies that they're attracting, the jobs and the future of work that they're attracting.
I think, okay, but there's also fundamentals to it too, right? Like let's use these manufacturing jobs. Let's use Brooks as an example. Leo had some good stats. I think Leo's average paying job at Brooks like 6 years ago, I remember him saying this was like 54,000, which 6 years ago before COVID, that was pretty dang good. But they found, I want to say 90% of their employees or the staff that worked there didn't live in the south side, right? So they were still commuting from the north side down here. There was still housing. I don't feel like there was enough housing. That's gotten better. But I think the big one that we have to work on, not just the south side, all parts of town, east side, west side, north side, is schools, right? So like that's a big decision maker. If you're coming in from, I don't know, Virginia, and you have a family, one of the first things you look at is school ratings. And so if you're looking at the south side, I'm from there, I'm going to speak to it. a lot of the public school systems had a very low rating, right? So it might have been a 1 or 2. Your decision to buy there, not knowing the area, is probably not going to be as high as opposed to if you look at Northside, it's a 4 or 5 rating on schools, right? You're likely going to look over there. So I think that's the big one, which the South Side is doing a great job on that and has been working on it for the last 6, 7 years or so. A&M actually was working with all the Southside Southside school districts on that, improving it. But if we can get those ratings up, I think now it's like, man, it's a great place. You have everything. You have the housing there. You got the retail. You got the workforce, which they're working on it. But I think there's more. There's more to it than just the pricing of the house, right? Like if we can get these other things right.
I absolutely agree. I think there's the three-legged stool of economic development that we talk about, and you have to create your own, you have to attract, and then you have to retain. And so when we think about doing that, it takes continuing education, which is why I like the Alamo Community College Network. It takes employers that are doing that work. Toyota, JCB, Caterpillar, all great examples of employers that reinvest in their employees. So I think there's a number of things that come together, but we have to be thinking about housing as we grow. Brownsville and Space City down there are great examples of it can pop up quick. And I think we're going to see more examples of that throughout South Texas.
One other thing I was just thinking about is like the community or the members, like somebody like myself who grew up down there, right? Or you grew up in Del Rio, and you go back and you're willing to invest your time, your energy, and your knowledge, right? And say why you think this is good. Because if you're not getting outside of the South Side, I remember that being a thing. I don't ever really remember traveling up north until I started driving, which was in high school, right? We would always just stay there. We knew what we knew, and it just, that's the way it was. And for a lot of people, right? So if you don't get any outside perspective from people you already know, like, and trust, that come back and say, hey, I'm willing to invest some time, energy, some resources. Let's talk and let me explain why this is good. I think that creates a lot of barriers. And I personally seen that where there's obstacles. I went into one trying to rezone, knew a couple people in there, but that was my community, man. I grew up in that Parks and Recreation. They told me to go back to New York. Literally, they said, go back to New York. And they said, all you real estate people want is money. Like, it was mind blowing to me. And I'm like, dude, I literally grew up in this Parks and Recreation Center right here. Like, so it was tough. But I think, like, trying to go back and overcome those barriers and educate people is a lot of work. I'm willing to fight that battle, but I think if we get more of that, we'll be able to make some good headway.
Well, and that means you're retaining your talent. And a lot of our best and brightest often leave the San Antonio region. And I think having them retain and say, hey, no, I want to reinvest in my hometown, wherever your hometown might be. I think we often leave and go to the coast, or we leave for our college experience and don't come back until we're ready to be back in that hometown. So it's just encouragement to hear someone local coming back in and being in the room and reminding people it's not just New York hedge funds. I don't think Blackstone should be buying and renting houses.
Yeah.
But when you have local investors, local people that are going to live and work in that community, I think that's the best type of development we could hope for, particularly in the south side of San Antonio.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Gilley Mendoza, thank you for everything that you're doing, the way that you're literally building Texas, and for spending some time with us today.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Justin. It's been great.